invertebrates, by far the best. By far the best. With anything that's alive, they're absolutely fascinating. They're everywhere. On the lizards, we have some incredible specialists. But the lizard, why is it important? Why is it such a special place? Well, look at it. Who doesn't want to live there? It's amazing. But seriously, one of the reasons is because it's warm. It's really warm. Frost-free on the coast. Generally a nice warm climate, so we get a lot of things that wouldn't live elsewhere just because of that slight rise in temperature. And what else? And I tried really hard to find a picture that demonstrates this, but we spoke about it when I spoke about heathland earlier. Mosaics, lots and lots of different habitats, and this is a really good picture of me and my colleague in Central View and Hilly doing some survey work. But this is a really great photo that demonstrates a mosaic of habitats. Really long, tall, scrubby heathland and grass, shorter heathland, water's edge, open water, even woodland in the back, grasslands. So many different habitats in one place, and invertebrates are really good at finding their particular niche. So the more habitats you have, the bigger diversity of invertebrates you have. So what I'm going to do is go through some of those really key habitats on a lizard and introduce you to some of the really special things. So heathland, I spoke about heathland this morning. Why is heathland good? Well, we've got masses of heathland on the lizards. Scale, we have really big areas of heathland. And as I said, there's a mosaic. They're an intertwined combination of different heathland types. And all invertebrates like their niche, so they'll find that specific type of heathland. So these are two creatures that really love the drier heaths, where it's not that wet and there's a bit shorter habitat for them to live. This is the grayling butterfly and the small heath. And the food plant for these, the caterpillar eats, is really fine, delicate grasses, which are often outcompeted by taller purple moorgrass, heather, and gorse. And you find these things, like fescues and bents, bristlebent in particular in the lizard, on these more open areas of trackways. In particular, where the reserve team have cut fire breaks. Hey! If you see a fire break that's been cut, a nice long sway through the heathland, and you walk across it, you'll see these butterflies in abundance. And they're often seen, as this grayling is doing. I say seen, they're very well camouflaged when they don't fly. But if you walk along there, especially in August when the butterflies are out in force, there'll be clouds and clouds of them. And I mentioned earlier, the heathland that we have on the lizard holds a phenomenal population of grayling. I think it's probably the best in Britain, which is amazing. Something else that likes dry heath areas, with a bit of bare earth. Look at that, that's an amazing creature. Green tiger beetle, often seen on dry, warm areas. Lives in burrows in the ground, so it needs slightly friable soil, can't be too wet, can't be too solid. And they emerge in the sunshine. If you're lucky enough, you might find one emerging. It's the only picture I've ever managed to take of them. I've seen millions, but they never ever sit still. And as you can see, they've got a serious pair of jaws, and that is for eating things like caterpillars and, unfortunately, spiders. Anything they can catch that's good enough food, they'll eat and they'll chop down with those huge jaws. Again, an amazing thing to see, and not uncommon on our heathlands. On the lizard. Marsh fritillary. So this is one of those creatures that likes the wetter heathland areas, often characterised by the cross-leaved heath, things like sedges and rushes. And this occurs where the food plant Devil's Bit scabious grows. Like I say, often in the wetter, damp heath areas. And the caterpillars of these create webs over the food plant, and they can be really conspicuous in the autumn. And that's how marsh fritillaries are surveyed often. You go around in the autumn, you look for those caterpillar webs on the food plant, see how many you can find. This is a very rare species and it's undergoing phenomenal decline across Britain, and unfortunately on the lizard as well. It seems to be losing a lot of its populations, and no one's really too sure why. It does seem to be disappearing, so there's a lot of work we need to do to try and understand what's going on with this. Maritime heath. So the heathland that we get on our dry cliff slopes. Amazing, the purseweb spider. This is our only spider we have in Britain that's related to tarantulas. That means its fangs there, huge fangs, downward pointing. It's often found on the lizard at the base of heather clumps that we get growing around the cliffs and the rocky outcrops. This is just the Kyne's Cove, and it's very common here. If you go and look around the base of heathers, you might be able to find them. Nationally scarce spider, quite scarce throughout Britain, but like I say, on the lizard, it's not too uncommon. It needs very dry, warm soil to be able to dig 12 inches deep, and they primarily live underground. So I say you might see them. You'll be very, very lucky to see the spider. What you will see is its underground web. And no, that isn't a bit of fox poo, well, it might look like it, but that is the spider's web. If you pull away, like I said, the heather that's growing on top of near the rocks, you'll see these little tubes covered in soil. And what this is a capture web. The spider's under the ground in a silk tube, and it waits for something like a woodlouse or a beetle to clamber over that. It runs through the middle of the tube, grabs it, pulls it through the silk, and down underground to eat. Yeah, I've seen the spider once in my entire life of surveying Cornish cliffs. The webs find spiders. And then the taller heath areas. So there are things, critters, the best way to talk about invertebrates, there are things that love the tall heath areas. So these are places, you think of Dry Tree around the Earth stations pictured there, you've got a much taller expanse of heathers and grasses. And those are really important for things like grasshoppers and crickets that really, really like the shelter that those provide. So woodland grasshopper, again, it's a nationally scarce species that's quite common in places like Dorset and the southeast, but very rare in the west, because it does like very good quality woodland clearings. Funnily enough, it seems to quite like the tall heath areas on the lizard. Fantastic. And this absolute beast, our biggest grasshopper or cricket, this is the great green bush cricket, it's huge. It's absolutely massive. That's my hand there, it's the size of my fingers. You'll find that in the scrubbier areas of heath, and it's got a really loud song. So of an evening in the summer, sometimes you'll hear this really loud, ear-piercing cricket song. That'll be the culprit. And like I said, they like this really tall, dense vegetation because it gives them structure to hide from predators, so the birds find them a bit more difficult to find amongst the taller heath. But not all predators. On the lizard heath, there's something that really loves these tall heath areas, and it makes a perfect cricket snare. And that's the wasp spider. This deliberately makes a large circular orb web right down in the base of these tall heath areas, particularly to catch crickets and grasshoppers, and they're very, very good at it. They'll get a few a day per spider. But amazing to see. So if you're ever out in the autumn, walking the heaths, look around at the base of those and you might be able to spot one of these in these bushes. So woodland. We don't really talk about woodlands when we think of lizards, but the woodlands on the lizard are home to some really, really special creatures. So we've got the more deciduous oak woodlands around the Halford estuary on this. We've got some pine plantation, which again isn't something you think which is nature rich, but it does have some special things. And also those small willow copses that spring up on the heathlands. They are important for invertebrates. Like I say, it's scarcer here, but it's no less important. Things like this, longhorn beetles, amazing looking creatures that live in various deciduous woodlands. So they use the dead wood from fallen branches to lay their eggs. One of the really key reasons why it's really important to not tidy away dead wood, because these need it. They lay their eggs in those fallen branches. And you'll see these, again later on in the summer, where you've got those willow copses which have got fallen branches around, and the populations of these species can build up. Shade-loving money spiders, not something I ever thought I'd find on the lizard, but Croft Pascoe, little pine plantation on Croft Pascoe, has two nationally scarce spiders that are only found normally in very, very dense conifer woodlands elsewhere, and it just goes to show that the habitat's there, these spiders will find it. So yeah, they require very, very damp litter underneath the pines, and they need that really cool shade. Not something that I'd ever thought I'd see on the lizard, but yes, they're there. It's by far the most western site for some of these things. Water. So I mentioned earlier about the heathland temporary pools and tracks, but those tracks and those ponds are very, very special for invertebrates as well as the plants. Goes without saying that dragons on the lizard are amazing to see. This is one of the pools of Rosuick, which holds some amazing dragonfly life, such as these two things. So we've got down here red-veined darter, which is an amazing red dragonfly, you can't quite see it in this photo, but the veins of the wings are bright red, and the vagrant emperor. These are both migrants that come to the lizard from southern countries to feed on our ponds on the lizard. Red-veined darter hasn't been seen as breeding yet, but I don't think it'll be very long. Vagrant emperor was brand new to Britain 3 years ago, I think it was, when it was found at Windmill Farm. And that has now been proven to be breeding at Windmill Farm. So it's now here to stay. And again, can't go without speaking about this. This is a spider that lives its life underwater, which is absolutely phenomenal. It lives its entire life in ponds like this with emergent vegetation. How on earth has that come about in evolution? Why did the spider suddenly think, yeah, I'm just going to live underwater all of a sudden? But it does, and it does well. What it does, it creates an air bubble around its abdomen by trapping air on hairs and deposits it into an upside down silk bubble and lives its life inside this air bubble underneath, hunting under the water and insects on the surface. And again, this is quite a scarce spider these days because it's affected by drainage and the damage that we can do to water. On the lizard pools, it's quite common. You can find it if you do a bit of pond dipping. It's an amazing thing to see. And yeah, my favourite by far, cliffs. I mean, give me a day of surveying somewhere like that and I'm a happy boy, I tell you. It's absolutely amazing. So this is perfect for creatures that like it really, really hot and dry, just like me. And it is a mixture, really, of those exposed rocky outcrops, those spaces, and the really, really short grassland. And it wouldn't be at all from me without me talking about the amazing spiders that we have on the lizard. So there's a suite of 10 red-listed, that is listed as threatened with extinction in the UK spiders that live on the cliffs on the lizard, because they're hot and warm. I say 10, a couple of visits last week made that to 12. We've had 2 new ones, which is really, really good news. I'm not going to spend the next hour or 2 hours going through all of them, because that's what I have to do, but I will introduce you to a couple of them. The western ground spider, Maphilosauria occidentalis, this lives under stones on maritime grassland. The lizard cliffs are perfect for it. It's incredibly rare. It lives in 4 sites in Britain. Every single one of those is on Cornish cliffs, one of them being on a lizard. That's it. Amazing, amazing thing to see. Big spider, it's about 1 inch long, brown, basically a chocolate fudge cake of a spider. But it's a real lizard specialty. It does very, very well at Kynance Cove, and the management of the site really helps it to thrive. 2 amazing looking jumping spiders. This is the V-fronted jumper, and weirdly, the white moustache jumper. It's called the white moustache jumper because the female has a white moustache. This is a male who is jet black and has yellow stripes across his face. And look at the V-fronted jumper. It's actually got green eyes. That's not the reflection. The spider actually has green eyes. If you catch it in the sunlight, it's ridiculous. But these 2 things, again, they are jumping spiders that live in areas like this. Sparsely vegetated, stony grassland or heath. The V-fronted jumper lives in 2 places in Cornwall. One of them is Gwenap Head, the other is Kynance Cove. This, the white moustache, it is a bit more widespread. It's a bit more widespread. It's found along certain points in South Cornwall and South Devon. 85% of the UK population that lives in Cornwall. Most of it is on lizard. So real, 2 real specialists. Away from the spiders, things that fly. So bees and wasps. These are 2 quite rare or scarce species that live on the cliffs. This is glossy mining bee, Andrena pilipes, and a bee wolf. And again, hot, dry areas, and they need lots of bare earth for digging their nest sites. You'll see the large black mining bees out and about on the coast now. If you walk in the coast path and you see a big bee, it'll be one of these. Again, it's quite a rare species, but does incredibly well on the lizard. Bee wolf is an amazing thing to see, especially if you happen to see it doing its thing and eating a honeybee. So this is a wasp that comes out later in the year, at the end of summer, and hunts. It spends its life hunting honeybees. Amazing thing to see, and again, specific on cliffs. And bugs. If I'm not liking spiders, this is my next best thing, bugs. And I don't mean bugs as insects, I mean true bugs. So these are the strange little relatives of shield bugs. And our really floristically diverse cliff tops are really good for these because they have lots of different scarce food plants. So things like Oates maritimus, a sea bug that feeds on thrift, very, very scarce in Britain, incredibly common on the lizard cliffs. Trapeziodontus ulricae, so this is a rare bug that feeds on oxeye daisy. Very rare everywhere, apart from in Cornwall, especially on the lizard, really, really common on the lizard cliffs. And probably the best one, the thyme lacebug, Lassia cappuccina because it's very furry. This is a tiny little 2mm bug that feeds on wild thyme on the cliffs. Really hard to find. It's found in a few places in Cornwall, one place in Wales, but if you go to the lizard cliffs, you can find them in hundreds. Really amazing habitat for something like that, a rarity. And then, yeah, strange arrivals. So this is a house centipede, Scutagera coleoptrata. This is native to the Mediterranean. And it lives on the West Lizard Cliffs in hot rocky grassland. It's been seen in Britain plenty of times. It comes across on shipments, it's been found in people's houses, but it's never ever been found out in the wild until a few years ago. We were surveying the cliffs and we found these on the cliffs. Not just 1, 2, 3, and then over the last few years, they seem to be there. It's a big centipede, a few inches long. How it got there, how long it's been there, is a complete mystery. But the warmth, the heat, the habitat is absolutely perfect for it. There's a video of what they do. Seeing that scurrying around on the lizard cliffs is very, very odd indeed. Is it here to stay? Don't really know. Could well be. It could well be. It may be that they arrived recently and the population will die out. It may be that they'll take hold and we will have just an extant population of this strange Mediterranean species. But it just goes to the power of the warmth that we have on the lizard. So yeah, that is just a very quick whistle-stop tour of the 500 or so rare species we have on the lizard. That's the rare species, and what I haven't spoken about is all of the other things. So the other habitats, the sea, hedges, gardens, farmland, all of that together produces an amazing mosaic of habitats for those other common species. But a lot of those common species, they are in trouble. Things like the small tortoiseshell, which seems to have disappeared off the face of the planet in the last couple of years, they're struggling. But there's a lot of habitat on the lizard that, if we looked after in a tiny, just a small change, if we helped it a little bit, it would help a lot of those invertebrates. So those common things, that just need a bit of a hand. And it's really in our power to do it. This isn't about the rare stuff, this is really about just helping some of those things to out. That's it. There's a female white moustache jumper on the figure. Thank you very much.